Welcome to Hamburgers and Horror, the home of meat, monsters, and murderous good guy dolls. I'm Noah Hook, and today we're looking at the latest installment in Charles Lee Ray's story, 2017's Cult of Chucky. 4 years after the events of Curse, we rejoin Nika, who has been moved to a new psychiatric hospital, finally accepting that there is no Chucky and she killed her entire family. That is until Tiffany shows up with a present for Nika, and Chucky quickly gets down to business. Mancini got to work on the script in 2015, and by early 2017 they were ready to start filming. All of our favorites returned. Brad and Fiona Dourif, Jennifer Tilly, and Alex motherfucking Vincent is here. Andy, after being absent for the past 3 films, aside from a post-credit scene, is back for a triumphant return. Michael Marshall, the cinematographer for Curse, returned, and Tony Gardner returned for the special effects and doll mechanics. And Don Mancini once again took on directing the film, making this his 3rd Chucky directing role. Cult was released to DVD, Blu-ray, and Netflix, and it made $2.2 million in its first 2 weeks. It once again had a budget of around $5 million, so I assume it's near or is past that by now. Cult was mostly met with positive reaction, especially from longtime fans of the franchise. It was the first to seamlessly blend the many variations the Child's Play franchise has seen through the years, ranging from dark, gritty violence to almost B-movie splatter gore, all the way to self-referential parody. And it does all of this while tying in characters and stories we never thought we'd see again. Not to mention one huge bonus Cult offers, but I'll wait till we're in the story to properly unveil it. I was so happy by the end of Cult the first time I watched it. It gave me so much hope for the future of the franchise, and I'm really excited to talk about it today. Better go grab your battery-controlled drill, folks, because we're gonna join the Cult of Chucky today. The movie opens on Andy Barclay in the middle of an awkward date as he and this lady named Rachel debate the Second Amendment. He eventually figures out she has Googled him, and he gives her a recap of his encounters with Chucky. Rachel is obviously a bit overwhelmed with dating such a traumatized man and promptly breaks up with him. Andy arrives at his beautiful log cabin where he grabs a brewski and looks over his stockpile of weapons. He removes a framed Kent sweatshirt, revealing a safe in the wall. He opens it up, revealing an absolutely mangled Chucky head, which is all that's left of him after the Curse post-credit scene. He removes Chucky's gag and even lets him have a hit. That is until Chucky tries to take a bite out of him. Chucky makes fun of his failure with women, but Andy doesn't mind hanging out with his best friend, and starts burning Chucky with a fucking blowtorch. A title card and some stylized shots from the previous films roughly recap Curse, and gives us a look at some of the headlines involving Nika's conviction, and eventually transitions to Nika, who is undergoing some very improper electroshock therapy. The cruel nurses even prick her foot just to mock her paralysis. Nika voices over, talking about her vivid memories of Chucky, and we cut to Dr. Foley discussing Chucky with her. She now believes Chucky was just a figment of her imagination, which she created to help cope with murdering her family. Dr. Foley is happy with Nika's progress and is having her transferred to Harrogate, a medium security facility where she'll have more freedom and privacy. Nika doesn't think she deserves that, as what she did was unforgivable, but she ends up going to the isolated, brutalist building. She is shown her room by a nurse named Carlos, who is friendly but wants Nika to know they are not friends, but he does share with her that his husband has been disabled by MS, but he doesn't let it stop him from living life, and he leaves her some juicy fruit to chew on. Nika explores the monochrome building and makes her way into a community room. She is ignored by Carlos but is quickly greeted by Angela, who asks Nika if she can see her. Angela believes she was a patient here and died and is now a ghost who forever walks the halls, but this guy Michael reminds her she's alive and shoos her away. He invites her over and is impressed hard-ass Carlos gave her gum and says Nurse Ashley is much nicer as she slips him a cigarette. She trades him for a piece of gum and they get hot and heavy in a stairwell. Hell yeah, medium security. We jump to a group therapy session where a woman named Claire is suspicious of Nika and wants to know why she killed her family. Michael sticks up for her and points out she did burn her own house down. Dr. Foley assures them Nika isn't dangerous, and Nika tells them she was pathologically jealous of Barb and overprotective of Alice. She says she'll never see her again and hopes she's okay. Then dead lady Angela pops up and says Alice isn't okay because Chucky gave her a call last night and told her so. She also says he's coming soon now that she can have visitors. Nika laughs it off, and Dr. Foley says this was bound to come up and has something to help them explore it together. God damn it. Foley explains that 2% of all good guys are named Chucky, and he specifically bought this one at Hot Topic, so it is safe. Nika doesn't mind the doll, but this woman named Madeline is immediately entranced with it and says the doll is her baby and is allowed to keep it. Madeline is very happy with her little boy until mean-ass Claire strolls over to remind her she killed her own infant son and takes the doll from her. Nika tells her to give him back, and Claire accuses her of still thinking Chucky is real, but Nika says reality is painfully clear to her. Nika half threatens to poison her with her stockpile of meds, and Claire returns Chucky and storms off. Then Mark introduces himself and says he has heard a lot from Michael, who is a professional swimmer. Madeline explains to the confused Nika that his real name is Malcolm and he has multiple personality disorder. Dr. Foley interrupts because Nika has a visitor, and wouldn't you know, it's Tiffany Valentine. Foley tells her she is Alice's guardian, and Nika questions her resemblance to Jennifer Tilly. Nika asks how Alice is, and Tiffany reveals she is dead, shocking Nika and Foley. Tiffany tells her she thinks Alice died of a broken heart, and Nika just breaks down. But apparently Alice wanted her to have something. God damn it. She says it's the doll from Alice's therapy and just pieces the fuck out. So now there are suddenly two good guys here. Foley puts the doll in his office and we confirm this one is Chucky. That night, Chucky sneaks right up behind Carlos while he's tip-tapping away and steals a very conveniently placed scalpel from a drawer. Chucky wanders the halls until he runs into Angela, who is back on her ghost lady bit. Angela thinks Chucky is a hallucination due to her schizophrenia, and Chucky cannot convince her otherwise. He promises her she is next and heads to Nika's room. He makes it into Nika's room and notices a spoke ripped out of her wheelchair. He rounds the bed to see Nika has used it to cut her wrist due to the sadness of Alice's death. Nika sees the blurred Chucky before passing out, but she does wake up the next morning with a stitched up cut and a message from Chucky. Carlos almost sees the blood message, but Nika is able to cover it up and get him out of there. But then an alarm goes off and we see that Chucky kept his promise to Angela, even leaving his signature for everyone to see. We rejoin Andy where he's rewatching footage from Harrogate, where he brought Chucky's severed head and tortured it to prove Chucky is real? And Foley thought it was just a well-made animatronic, I guess. Chucky talks some shit to him before we rejoin Nika at group therapy. Claire is convinced Nika killed Angela, and Malcolm is convinced Chucky did it. He is even more convinced when Madeline walks in with her good guy. Nika suddenly remembers who Tiffany Valentine is and her relationship to Charles Lee Ray. Foley says it is just a doll, and Nika tells him to prove it. So he sits down and burns the shit out of it, giving this Chucky a proper monster hand. Nika realizes Chucky could have switched places with Madeline's Chucky and wants Foley to burn that one as well, but neither Foley nor Madeline are having that. Foley is very disappointed in Nika, but Malcolm thinks it'd be best to just get rid of the dolls to be safe, and they try to catch Madeline, but she goes outside. Nika goes to distract Nurse Ashley while Malcolm, currently identifying as Mark Zuckerberg, goes to get Madeline's doll. Meanwhile, Claire is pretty much on the same page and brings Claw Hand Chucky to a garbage chute, but he bites her arm as Foley and Carlos round the corner. She tells them Chucky is alive, but they just think Claire bit herself and they take her into a lab, strap her down and sedate her, all with Chucky watching. Nika looks out at the graveyard and sees Madeline talking to Chucky, but it's unclear if the doll is talking back or not. Oh, I think he was. But I thought the real Chucky was with Claire. And what about the one with Andy? Nika tries to warn her, but Madeline just tosses the doll in the grave. Malcolm trots over and Madeline has him look into the grave and she pushes him down into it. The sedated Claire no longer has the ability to move, but she is still conscious. Ashley bursts in and says she needs help with Malcolm, leaving Claire alone. Some interesting split screens show us different views of the graveyard as Malcolm holds Chucky up to Madeline and Carlos and Ashley pull him up. And he darts an evil grin at Nika. Uh-oh. Claire stares up at the big snowy skylight and realizes Chucky isn't in his chair. He tries to do a jump scare, but she is too sedated to react. Chucky found himself a can of compressed oxygen and smacks it against the floor, sending it flying through the skylight. Claire lets out a single tear as the glass rains down, chopping her up and decapitating her. And of course, poor Nika finds the squirting, headless body. Meanwhile, Andy finds an article about the deaths at the psychiatric hospital, and Chucky finally confirms there is more than one of him now. Andy goes to his weapons locker and pulls out a buzz-cutted good guy of his own and heads out into the night. Nika is trying to convince Foley that Chucky is real and inside the hospital, but of course he isn't buying it. But Nika is even on to the fact that both dolls are alive, and we get a little flashback to see how it happened. But Foley tries to tell her how crazy all of this sounds, and is wondering how much of this chaos is actually Nika's doing. Foley wants to hypnotize her. Sure, I guess. He says it may help him get to the truth of what's going on, and he grabs a needle. All great hypnotists use needles. He drugs her and places her in front of a strobe light. He asks her what she'd say if there were hidden cameras at Harrogate and there is footage of her killing Angela and Claire. She says she couldn't really argue with evidence like that and begins to imagine herself committing the murders. But somehow the footage was erased, and both Foley and inebriated Nika agree she must be the one who erased the footage. Nika giggles and tells Foley that Chucky is right behind him, but then Foley kisses Nika. Oh no. He says he has missed these little sessions from the previous institution, revealing he's been doing this to Nika for a while, and this is how he's brainwashed her into thinking she's a murderer. But Nika wasn't lying, and Chucky knocks Foley out with a bottle to the head. Chucky finds Foley absolutely diabolical and is a bit jealous, and he picks up a piece of glass trying to convince Nika to kill him. She takes the glass from Chucky and we fade to black. We rejoin Nika as she is crawling through the halls where she finds Alice, who says they've been waiting for her. A giant Chucky shadow approaches on the wall and... But then Nika wakes up on the exam table Claire died on, and she has visions of Chucky's death from Child's Play 3? Madeline, Nika, and Malcolm are waiting for Dr. Foley, and Malcolm is very excited about all the tragedy around them. He even has a new name today, Charles. Uh-oh. Nika asks Madeline if she can hold the baby, but it's time for his nap. She does run into Foley, who believes it was Nika who knocked him out last night, but he says he is willing to keep quiet about it if she is. I'm not sure how much Nika remembers, but either way, she is preoccupied with the fact that Madeline is breastfeeding Chucky. Oh no! Andy is still on the road and gets a call from Tiffany, and Andy says he is coming for them. But Tiffany says there are already 3 Chucky's and the cult is continuing to grow. Nika knocks on the door while Madeline finishes breastfeeding Chucky and puts him to bed. Oh god, and her nipple is bleeding. Madeline tells her baby she loves him and starts suffocating Chucky with a pillow the same way she did her real son. It appears this Chucky might be dead, but Foley comes in to yell at Madeline for what she did to her son and has her apologize to the doll. We get a pretty dark monologue from Madeline about her struggles as a mother and what led to her suffocating her baby, but Nika doesn't care about all that as she knows the doll is just pretending to be dead. She tries to grab him, but Madeline stops her. She does let Foley take the doll, who finds it to be a powerful symbol for what has gone wrong for Nika, Madeline, and Malcolm. He says it's time for them to bury the past, and they have a funeral for the doll. But Nika isn't buying it and is determined to watch the grave, and Andy has finally arrived. The stupid guard won't let him inside, so he just decks the dude so he can be committed, and I'll be damned, it worked. Welcome to the party, Andy. Glad to have ya. Nika is still watching the grave, and just as Chucky bursts out of it, the other Chucky sedates her in the neck. Meanwhile, a package has arrived for Foley, and it's the buzz-cut Chucky that Andy mailed. Madeline talks about what it means to love a child with Ashley, and says she would kill herself if she thought she could see her boy again. When Ashley leaves, we see her baby boy is back. I guess she knows she is going to die, and asks Chucky for one last hug, at peace with it. Chucky promises to make it hurt, and he delivers as he shoves his entire arm down her throat, and he pulls out something? Her esophagus? Maybe her spine? I don't know, and I don't care. That was great. Poor Nurse Ashley has a bad feeling and checks on Madeline, and finds her with a whole doll arm lodged in her throat. Very, very dead. Malcolm is having tons of fun, and Nurse Ashley makes the most logical choice of anyone in this movie and quits. Foley gives the doll to Carlos to throw away, which goes much more smoothly than I expected. Foley returns to his office where the drugged Nika is now in a straitjacket, and he still won't believe Chucky did this. Nope, it's just another golden opportunity to get even creepier as he pulls out a pair of high heels for her to wear. She says he is going to die and she'll expose him to the world, but he says nobody will believe a diagnosed schizophrenic murderer. But Nika spits in his face and Chucky knocks him out again. Chucky again tries to convince Nika to kill him, but she refuses. In comes the dirty one-armed Chucky, who now has a drill. They discuss Andy's presence and the fact that he isn't a kid anymore, so they should be careful. They find Buzzcut Chucky and perform a slightly different spell to wake him up with some Charles Lee Ray soul. The Chuckies talk about how much they love killing, and they explain to Nika he simply found a new spell on the internet that allowed him to split his soul into multiple bodies. And that's exactly what he did to Alice at the end of Curse. He basically used Alice as a weapon, and she died when a victim fought back and overpowered her. Damn, that's sad. Oh no, Carlos! Carlos, run! Run! Get out of there! Oh no! Yeah. Carlos is dead. Carlos is really dead. The Chuckies are having fun, though.
I never felt so alive! Yeah, well, you've been alive for like 2 minutes.
The Chuckies debate who gets to kill Andy, and they decide Buzzcut has it worst off so he can have the honors, while One Arm guards the door and Clawhand takes care of Nika. Meanwhile, that security guard who got decked now finds a suspicious red car outside, but the only thing in the car is the Tiffany doll, and human Tiffany takes him out with her patented nail file throat slit. Nika begs Chucky to kill her and get it over with, but he reveals he never intended to kill her. He has something else in mind, and begins the incantation. Oh shit! And it looks like it worked, as Nika stands up and walks around. I guess the limitations of a body don't apply whether it's a doll or a paraplegic. Foley starts waking up, and Chucky is pleased with his newest body. He tells him this is for Nika, and proceeds to smash the ever-living fuck out of his head with those red heels he liked so much. Nika Chucky runs into Malcolm, who is taking credit for killing Ashley, who I guess didn't get out of there in time after all. But Chucky knows he isn't the real Charles and calls him on his bullshit. This reverts him back to Malcolm, who drops to his knees in confusion. And one-armed Chucky sends that drill right through the back of his head. Fuck yeah. Buzzcut has found Andy and gets inside the room. He nails Andy in the knee with a knife, but Andy is able to pin the doll against the wall. He rips down Chucky's overalls and rips through his stomach Kali Ma style and retrieves a gun he hid inside the doll. He shoots him a bunch of times and Chucky realizes he is the one who sent him. Andy finishes his best friend off with a glorious head stomp. He turns to find Nika Chucky behind him, who warns that killing him will kill Nika. Andy doesn't give a fuck about Nika, but he is out of bullets. Chucky relocks him in the padded room and escapes. One-armed Chucky puts the drill down and assumes the regular doll position amongst the carnage, while Nika Chucky makes his way out to Tiffany. The two make out and hop in the car where they make fun of dead Alice. As they laugh, it is revealed that the Tiffany doll is also alive, so Tiffany has also split her soul up. The two head out to end the movie, but wait, there is a post-credits scene. OG Chucky is still chilling at Andy's when a car pulls up. Who could it be?
Kyle?
Andy sent me. We're gonna have some fun.
And that's Cult of Chucky. If you can't tell, I think this movie is a ton of fun. Don Mancini was able to seamlessly juggle the mystery, horror, and comedy that the previous entries were all juggling to varying degrees. And for a 7th movie in a franchise, it expands into so much new territory and even adds to characters we thought would be long gone by now. Andy's return is wonderful. It's great to see the paranoid badass he has become, but it is still mostly Nika's movie, and despite all of the horrible things that surround her, she continues to be a badass as well. I am bummed she and Andy didn't get to meet, but I have a feeling that will happen somewhere down the road. And of course, it's so fucking great to have multiple Chucky's. I'm sure it was quite a task for Tony Gardner and all of the puppeteers to work through Chucky's for the finale, but it was definitely worth it. Their banter with each other is so much fun, and it really makes him so much more scary to take on. Having Chucky in multiple dolls was something Mancini wanted to do since Child's Play 3, but the budget and stories just never really lined up for it to happen, so I'm really glad it was finally able to happen. And it really does add to the story, especially in your first watch. You don't really know what's going on and you don't know which doll or dolls are alive. It definitely has the most paranoia outside of the original for sure. And I love the little details to differentiate the Chuckies from each other. I'm not sure what happened to Clawhand after he switched into Nika. I'm not sure if that doll is now lifeless or if part of Charles Lee Ray's soul is still inside of it. But either way, Cult leaves so much open for a sequel, which is both good and bad. I love how much is going on by the end, and I'm super stoked to see it all play out in the next installment. But it doesn't really feel like a proper ending to the movie, more like a bunch of cliffhangers right before a finale. But that doesn't bother me so much because it's basically a promise for more. I'm so ready for Andy and Kyle to team up. I'm also hoping we get some other OGs like Karen, Mike, or maybe Tyler. Tyler of all people could use a little bit of redemption. Cult has such a distinct style, unlike anything we've seen in the series so far. The harsh white of the hospital makes the entire movie seem so desaturated and cold, and Chucky and the blood are the only pops of color that bring it to life. Oh, and have I talked about the kills in this movie yet? There are so many fantastic kills. There's the glass decapitating Claire, the drill going through Malcolm's head, the arm lodged down Madeline's throat, Foley's head getting smashed, and Carlos getting fucked up by 3 Chucky's at once. I'm afraid Cult might dominate my top 10 kills list. There was just so much creativity and effort put into all of them, they are top notch. It's also the first time we actually see Chucky succeed at taking a body. Fiona Dourif does a great Chucky impression. I guess it runs in the family. Cult also continues the strong presence of LGBT characters and themes that began in Bride. Carlos, while inherently being a bit of a villain because of his position in the movie, is a very sympathetic character who just happens to be gay. And the really interesting part is Chucky taking over the body of Nika. Chucky is now a man inside of a woman's body, and it's clear the events of Seed happened, so I'm interested to see if Glenn and Glenda make a return, and I'm excited to see what their thoughts on their dad's new body. Cult is also able to top Curse as being the darkest movie in the franchise. Nika finding out Alice had her body stolen and was killed is rough, and Madeline's entire arc is super dark, with Chucky definitely sinking to new lows as he exploits it. You all know I'm not a huge fan of asylum-type settings for horror movies. They're just a little bit exploitative and cop-out-ish. But I think the hospital and the patients were written in well and all given depth. They all have very distinct encounters and relationships with Chucky, and despite some mean-spirited moments on Chucky's end, the film does a good job of fleshing them out. All in all, I really enjoy Cult of Chucky. It constantly has so much going on, but it never feels lost or confused. It's a fantastic fusion of all the things that made the Child's Play series so diverse through its 30-year span, while still adding new things into the mix. It has great acting, writing, set design, gore, animatronics, everything you'd hope for in a Chucky movie. I'm not certain where it sits on my ranking list quite yet, but I highly recommend it. Well, that's about it. Next week we'll be looking at Chucky's AI bastard cousin in the 2019 reboot. Thank you all for joining me, and a special thank you to my patrons for helping me keep the channel running. As always, I'm Noah Hook, and this has been Hamburgers and Horror. Stay safe out there. Thanks for watching my review of Cult of Chucky. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe so you can keep up with all my Chucky content. And if you want to support the channel further, you should go check out my Patreon account. You'll be able to vote in polls to decide future movies and request specific movies for me to cover. Thanks, y'all.